general thing that I wanted to throw out there and propose is the way that I look at messaging really comes from electoral campaigns, but as well as advocacy work, is that you really have three audiences. You have the base, your come hell or high water supporters, the people who are going to turn out for you, the people who are already in your camp. Those are your messaging ambassadors. And the reason I have a picture of Miracle Whip here is because Miracle Whip spends 90 cents of every advertising dollar marketing to the people they call the super heavy users, the people who never buy another product other than Miracle Whip, because they know those are the people who are going to take Miracle Whip and use it in a recipe and take it to a picnic, and somebody's going to ask them, why is your chocolate cake so fantastic? And they're going to say, oh, you'll never believe it, there's a Miracle Whip in it. And they understand the value of relational organizing. So I think our task here is two tracks. One is the track to build incredible content, which is tailored to these three audiences, and then to effectively push out that content. Because if we don't effectively push it out, which is also the other side of comms, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't travel, it's not going to have an impact. So the content we put out to the base has to be engaging. It has to grab them so that they become the messaging ambassadors, and they also become the volunteers. And to the persuadables, an event like what we're going to do on the 21st, learning to speak with conservatives. And in general, when I use the term conservative, I don't mean just a political conservative, i.e. Republican. I mean a conservative on that issue. And that can be a conservative Democrat that has doubts about single payer. But what defines those persuadables is that they can believe contradictory things. They can both believe that Medicare or healthcare is a human right, or that everybody should be able to access and afford healthcare, and they can believe that it's going to cause negative impacts. It's going to make government too big. It's going to be too expensive, and it's not going to work. They toggle back and forth between both. And our job is to drag them to the most, or to move them to the progressive side of the argument and keep them there. So the 21st, I think, is a great workshop because it talks about engagement, but also context. And the third audience is your opposition, which I know seems odd that, we're talking about the people who are the Trumpers QAnon crowd, or the people who are going to tell you you're a socialist or communist, but they can unwittingly amplify your message to that persuadable audience. If they share it, it can actually help us as opposed to hurt us if it's framed in a way that would actually speak to the persuadable, because not everybody does live in a silo. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in messaging. To my mind, in terms of our goals, I think the tasks before us are to review and update the website. And I think there's a lot of good content on there. I think we could streamline it a little bit. I think we could also do some interesting things if we have someone who has the capability to embed the social media feed, like maybe the Twitter feed, onto the website, so that it makes it more likely that people will travel back and forth between the two. I think we could also put up a lot more kind of visual content, which will engage some of the more, this sounds condescending, but lower information, audience that we're speaking to. A 20-year-old college student might not sit down and read a long article about single payer, but they might watch a 5-minute movie or a video. They might tune into John Oliver, a John Oliver segment, and watch a 20-minute video on tax policy because there are jokes in it. So I think that's kind of some of the interesting things that we can do. And then to Betty's earlier point, she had in task setting up a system to monitor the website and change the content. Reviewing contact and comms techniques from outside groups and IDing useful techniques. We kind of had that on the Sunday Justice for All call. AJ did a great presentation about Anat Shankar and Sario's book, Don't Buy It, in the Race Class Narrative. And then taking those techniques and building the content. And then this part kind of, I think, more speaks to Stefan, Amanda, and myself. You know, what we'll be doing a lot is building a social media content calendar, which we've done on pretty much every campaign, so that you know generally what you're going to be posting in the upcoming week. And we're not building content day by day. But you can then, if something comes out, somebody releases a letter from their Senate office, of course, we're going to preempt what we had that day and we're going to put that out. And then, effectively using the organic content that we have, for example, like the videos that AJ has done, the videos and recordings for PNHP, the office hours. I think also then another important component would be IDing our partner universe. So I would define that as our base. So the single payer advocacy groups or ally groups, progressive democratic groups, or other political groups, but to be honest, they tend to be on the progressive side. So groups like Sunrise, Indivisible, democratic groups, and then our persuasion universe, the professional associations like professional medical associations, labor unions, the business, and US chambers. And then I think the last component would be determine campaigns and focus content on the campaigns, explaining why we're pushing for policy X, and then building media content and actions around those campaigns. And when I say campaigns, I'm talking about things that would be things that we would determine as like short-term goals, like expanding Medicare, raising patient care hours in nursing homes, or pushing for an ERISA protection. Like if we decide that for 2022, pushing for an ERISA waiver for the states is going to become one of our top priorities, then we build a campaign around that, and we build media content around it, and we find a broad spectrum of partner groups to work on that. All right, and then getting, I think, to content. My top priorities, I thought here would be building engaging content, tailoring that to specific audiences. So for young people, we'd be using Instagram, Facebook a bit, maybe even more newer platforms if we have the capacity to do that, like TikTok. And also engaging their groups and engaging them at events, going to them and engaging them, motivating them, and then hoping they carry that message to other friends. So a lot of that content would be visual, it would be stories, it wouldn't rely heavily on text. And again, would need to be really fun and engaging. Professional party allies, I think this part, I think we do very well. I think the content is solid. I think, again, like Twitter, eBlast, Facebook events, this group, to my mind, would be most likely to go to the website. At least that's the way that it is played out on electoral campaigns. And I think, again, I think that message is pretty strong. And then the persuadable group, Facebook events, eBlast, maybe Twitter. I didn't put on here, but maybe possibly Twitter. And again, less policy and more story, and kind of, I think the trick with this group is going to be finding a way to communicate complicated policy in very easily understandable language. Kind of, if you could explain it to just anybody on the street, that's what we're going for. And also, and I believe we'll touch on this on the 21st, speaking in a individualized, personalized tone to these voters who are going to be most moved by personal stories and stories that they can relate to on an individual level. So that was a lot, but I will throw it out to you guys and see what you think.
Yeah, I really do. I like the individualized approach. For young people, Instagram, yes, visuals is a must, and does need to be fun and engaging. I'm excited to see the videos that I heard were created, because I do think that'll be really engaging for Instagram, especially Instagram. Yeah, it looks good to me.
I also agree. I think that, Kristin, you're on the right track with, thinking about different groups and targeting messages to different groups. Those that are, our base, those that are persuadables, those are that in the opposition, thinking of them as, the young people, other professionals, and the persuadables. I think this is the right way to think about it. And like you said, sometimes poking the opposition in order to get the message out and get it to the base is a great idea. So I think there is some benefit to doing some of that as well. So being a little outrageous can be very good. So I totally support this. Thank you.
Thanks, AJ.
One thing I want to comment on is that there's audiences, as in like the young people versus the professional and party allies and legislative, and there's a lay persuadable. But then like within those groups, like there's the young people like my daughter, and there's the young people like my nephew, my daughter who supports Bernie and my nephew who supports Trump. So those are very different audiences. And then, but you still, Instagram and Facebook are the platforms to reach, well, not really my daughter. She doesn't really go online now. She watches kitties and puppies on Instagram. So she doesn't go on Facebook much. And then, for instance, in the professional party allies, and legislative, a lot of the persuadables are in that. There are the nurses who wish they made sure that their patients could always be taken care of, but they're very much afraid of, they've listened to all these things and they're worried about losing choice and how will we pay for it, and all those arguments where the big money has taken over the thing, like choice of insurance company, I want my choice of provider. So we have to change those narratives to help those persuadables understand. But
there will be a lot of bleed over across these. Too, when I think in professional, I'm also including in there journalists. We always joke on political campaigns that the biggest reason you want to be on Twitter is because the only people on Twitter are politicians and journalists. I mean, beyond that, that's just pretty much, and celebrities, That
is a lot of what's there, yeah.
One category I might add is businesses, maybe targeting a message to the business community, because at the end of the day, the M4A is really pro-entrepreneurial, it's pro-business, it takes away a lot of the overhead. So I think we really should be focusing on those guys, because there's a lot to be sold to them. A lot of the business community basically is looking at it from reducing tax impact, and that's why they support Republicans and won't even listen to our message. But I think if we show them that we can lower their overhead and cost burden, this could be very valuable.